All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and today is August 23rd. One more day before the end of the week, and a little bit of a reversal bar today. I would say. We'll look at all the. By the way, we'll look at all the names that are reported after the close. Splunk is up pretty big here. I'll talk about Splunk in a minute. But we finished down. But regardless, of only the SPY being down, 9 basis points, the Q's down 15, IWM, small caps down 30 basis points. We could look at these charts a little bit. So really not that bad of a day in terms of overall performance. However, Qs were up about 40, 50 basis points at one point today. So sometimes, for me, I know they are, but the intraday reversals are a little bit tough because everything, and so let's bring up the Qs chart here. I think a lot of people were, including myself, were kind of looking for the Qs to take that next leg higher, and they may do that. They may just not be ready to do it. Again, we're at the end of August, which is a tough time to trade because low volume. And I think we had, maybe a selling program come in a little bit. Maybe some worries about the BABA earnings, and a couple other things on the tape that were a little bit that were a little bit weak. But these are tough, right? When we just kind of turn on a dime. It's we've been seeing more of those days. I think the last month. Again, it's not every day, but it's, to me as a trader, for how long I've been trading, which is a long time. These reversal bars where you just basically turn on a dime and take out all the price action just as fast as you went up is really odd to me. But it is a little bit of a product of probably a selling program coming in, people getting a little spooked about something on the tape. And that's tough because if you start to accumulate something in the first hour of the day, your cost basis wasn't down here. Your cost basis is probably up here. So you kind of get smacked around a little bit. And if you're like me and you've been kind of following some of the things that I've been saying, is where, this week or towards the end of the week, I really wanted to lessen risk. And you're watching these things kind of go up a little bit and you haven't been participating. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I made a mistake today. I've been looking at PayPal for like every day for the last 3 or 4 days. And I finally said, enough is enough. I can't watch this thing. You get you get the FOMO, right? You get the, which I think PayPal will be fine. But it's just a little bit of bad timing, right? So, what do you do when you get days like this, when you have a little bit of the midday reversal, and maybe you started off the day buying something and it reversed and it didn't end too well? You basically just get out of your seat and go for a little bit of a walk and get away from the screens for 5 minutes and just reset your attitude. Because again, the market doesn't go up in a straight line. You got to be able to kind of adjust. And the other thing that I'll say is this is, classic is that, we can't control the market. You can only control what your actions are. Other than that, some of these things, they have a mind of themselves. And when things reverse like this, you can adjust, what you're doing. So, we talked a little bit about that. I talked about in the trading room yesterday that I was getting a little bit antsy with my risk. I said, hey, I really like some of the trades that I've got on, but I'm cognizant going into the end of August that I would rather be a little bit more conservatively positioned, especially for and what I'm talking about is options, right? Not so much for stock and investments, but your trading account, right? That stuff. I'm up very nice again for the month, and I don't want to give those gains back, right? So I continuously tell myself that because it's not easy. There's a lot of psychology that goes on in this in trading on a day-to-day aspect. And this has been the case for me now for the last 3 or 4 months where I'm up huge. And now we're obviously way past the middle of the month, but you don't want to, if you're having a great beginning of the month, don't get greedy and don't give it back. Just because you're thinking that you can make more. So be content. And right now I've had a beautiful month, and I had a nice one in July and June. In May, I made the mistake. I was up big, and I gave it back at the end of the month. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about today's price action. So let me talk about. There's an index that I set up. I used to do this when I used to trade institutionally. One of my roles was for a couple of years is I led the custom basket platform at Merrill Lynch. So I was the chief trader behind that platform where we used to design customized ETFs. So I still do that. I still do that on Bloomberg. This is one that I created about a year ago. At least it maybe actually a little bit longer than a year ago, but it's business technology, right? There's no ETF out there right now that's specific to business technology. These are names that help businesses, small businesses, mid-sized businesses, even large-sized businesses, basically grow. And as a small business owner, these are some of the names that I use as well. But this has been super, super strong. It looked like it was getting a little bit fragile a couple times, but super strong. And if you look at the performance and some, what I designed in here, in terms of names that are in here. And again, I designed this, over a year ago. Whoops. I guess you can't look it up that way. But if you just look at the performance today, Synapsys, reported earnings last night. FireEye's in here. Zen. By the way, the Zen chart, which had good earnings, because I want to talk about the names that reported after the, geez, look at this thing. Didn't even give you much of a pullback before Zen just took off like a rocket ship the last 2 days. A few other names just to kind of glance at. GoDaddy, which I think is a really good. So I want to talk a little bit about setups rather than just option activity, because I think there's better setups if you kind of look at some of these things your own. But GoDaddy, I think, is setting up very nice. I like this a little bit better than Wix, but I think Wix is also setting up pretty nicely. Yeah, I think I like the GoDaddy chart. I actually started as so like I said, I'm trying not to add positions right now, but the GoDaddy chart looks great, and I added a small position today in GoDaddy because I think it's got more ahead of it. A few other names in here. ServiceNow, FTNT did very well. We'll talk about FireEye in a minute. NTNX, somebody is really seems to be positioning. So keep in mind when I say this, just because there's a big call buyer on the tape, and there was somebody bought NTNX calls last week too, it doesn't mean the stock is going to go up, right? There's really not a big correlation with that, right? So make sure that you know that if you're listening to this video. A lot of people, I say this all the time, I'm not trying to put anybody down, but just because there is aggressive calls that go up, that doesn't mean that the stock is going to go up. You hope it does. You hope that they know something, but there's no 100% certainty. But that said, somebody's buying the heck out of NTNX. If I could show you I was just looking at this, but maybe I don't have it up anymore. Here, I will show you in our ETF AX system, which subscribers can gain access to. NTNX. You can see there's 2,000 of the September 55 calls. So bring your eyes over here. This is the that is the option premium. It's almost $1 million that somebody's putting down there. And then right at the end of the day, so this was midday, this was around 1:30. And then also look at 5 minutes before the bell, somebody put on the 57.5 calls. Again, not small, $300,000 premium. Now, I'll check the open interest tomorrow because both of these do have open interest, but sweep, this one was actually 3,000 contracts. The sweep is really for 2,000. I know Trade Alert lumps their orders, so if part of the order is bought, the rest of the order, they call the whole thing as a sweep, which I don't think they should be doing that. That's why I have my own system now. But in any event, I would keep your eye on this when they report on 8:30, which is a week from today. So let's continue with this group, and I'll go back to the option activity. But this was one name that reported after the close yesterday. I got the wrong symbol. SN, it's Synaptis. PS, is it? I get these symbols confused. But up 6%, real nice quarter. That's another application software name. So look at what these, we played Autodesk in the room today. Let's hope it's still up. Yeah, we went long Autodesk for earnings today. I had sold a put spread, and I also bought a longer dated call spread. So Autodesk looks pretty good. I really like the chart in this. which is I'll give you the kind of the reasoning why I went long in this. A lot of consolidation here, and trying to move to the top side. So I like that. I did not play this one. I'm so aggravated with myself for not playing it. Look at the VPOC up here, right? 117, and I talked about this. I just kind of at the end of the day, I said, hey, I'm just going to play Autodesk, and I kind of talked myself out of it. Look at this sucker go, 117. So I'm not going to be able to look at this one again because I get really upset when I do the analysis and I say I'm going to go long and then I chicken out at the last second. That's worse than a trade going down sometimes. But very nice looking name here. I am still long IGV, which has a piece of this in it. And then the last one in the space that reported is Vive. Keep in mind, Vive. So Vive, all these names, right? They reported. So it's exciting, to talk about this stuff and to realize that these names are crushing it. Vive ran up a little bit too much into earnings. Let's be honest. But look at the numbers that these guys reported. 39 cents versus 34, 209 versus 203, and then look at the guidance. 38 cents versus 35. And it's the same thing for the others too. We could look at the Splunk numbers as well. 388 versus 358, 8 cents versus 5 cents. Look at the guidance, 430 to 430. So it's a beat. It's a beat for this quarter, and they're raising their guidance. So it's just really impressive. And yeah, I mean, it really gets me excited to kind of hear that these numbers are still, that these companies which cater to businesses are continuing to grow and they're being used. So, I like, I think it was Tom Wrigley. I'm going to quote him. There's a real nice follow on Twitter. He was talking about how everybody is looking for reasons to sell this market, but nobody is really stressing like the really good stuff. And I just don't think it gets, it's exciting to talk about these companies that are continuing to knock the ball out of the park. And it's not, and again, these are not just like one-offs. It's pretty much the majority of names that are involved in this process of catering to businesses in the technology space that are doing great. So so again, I would watch NTNX. Salesforce also. I got a little bit nervous with holding Salesforce. I was in a trade and I unwound it last week because it's been kind of like it's been starting high and then kind of giving back some profits. But but it's been just muddling along, like that word, muddling along, and moving higher. But you could see it opens. A lot of times it opens on the highs and sells off. So you can't really day trade this thing. You got to have a swing trade on. But like look at this this day for example. But if you started in here, which is where I started, where I put on a swing trade, and I think I sold mine in here. But just continuing to move higher. So it's at a little bit of a slower pace, but it's moving in the right direction. Sticking with this theme, which I'm kind of making that a priority today. Yeah, so I talked about the NTNX, which I think will be a really interesting earnings report. What else did we see today? Yeah, here's a little, just small CRM, tiny order, but still kind of catches my eye. So FireEye was the story of the day in terms of if you play the game of option activity. They bought some really small trades, but they were aggressive, and I think a lot of people opened up to, hey, we haven't seen FireEye calls in a long time. And I'll bring this up here. There was just 2,000 of these. This was the first order that went up. Right, just talk about a small order, right? Just 38,000. That's it. $38,000, right? That could be me or you. But they followed it up a couple times, and that's what made it interesting. Is they kept on buying. So, and then a story comes out, that they're working with Google in some capacity. So, if you bought these for 19 cents, the 15 and a half calls, you had a damn home run today because this thing got over 16 bucks today. So congratulations if you took that trade today. Again, very aggressive. The fact that they kept on backing it up, even they were buying calls, like even that after that announcement that was made right around 1:30, 2 o'clock. I confess, I went out to lunch too when that announcement was made. But anyway, I would say that was the trade of the day. Just to talk a little bit about the Chinese internet names. Again, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Where did Baba? Baba completely opened on the highs and closed on the lows. I was very lucky in this trade. I sold premium. I thought that they were implying too much of a move. So if you go to my earnings section, yeah, so I exited my trade. I bought it back for 35 cents. And, this is a good example why do not get greedy when you sell premium. Do not try to get these things all the way down to zero, in my opinion. And again, this video is for information purposes only. I'm not giving out any advice. But in my experience, I do not try to get the full zero on this. If I've got a winning trade and I've made like 85% of what I can make, the risk to return is not great to try to get the last 35 cents. So I bought this thing back, and where did this thing close? At 172. You got to be kidding me. So if I would have kept this thing on to try to gather the last 35 cents, I could lose the whole $5. So that's what I mean by risk to return. And again, I put this. This is my Autodesk trade on. Trades that I did today, which I'm always completely transparent in my trading room as well as in the videos. Grub, one hell of a trade that we put on here in Grub. So again, a lot of fun things going on. So it's really tough, So I put this trade on right in here, and it's back. It's almost back to the 52-week highs. I have one target to go in this $10 wide call spread. I'm pretty much at a double, almost at a double at this point for the SEP 131.40 call spread. Twitter I took, again, I was lucky to. This is why you take targets, right? Because everything reversed today, and I was able to take my second target in the October 34 calls. For 260, paid 186. Again, here's my small. Like I said, I put a very small GoDaddy trade on. Shutterfly, we talked about this trade in the video last week. Perfect, starting to work. I mentioned I have never traded this name before, but you got to get your feet wet. And I bought this trade in here last week, and look at this thing up 2% today. So I was able to take a target today, doing very well with that. $5 at 370. So here's me taking off a little bit of risk. FedEx I put on last week. I hit 2 targets. Yes, I'm going to unwind it because I have to reduce some of my exposure. That's what my trading plan tells me to do right now into the last week of. Fortunately, I let this one go down below my cost basis. It is what it is. Not every trade is going to be a winner. Look at this one, RPD that we took. And a subscriber brought this to my attention. Look at this thing. This is Rapid 7. Right? Kind of looks like that consolidation that I just looked at for Autodesk. Real nice move out of this base. So I took a target in this. I still have a small piece of this one on, but 330 at 218. I got out of another trade today, Abbott, 256 for 199. I took a target yesterday. I started a trade in Melly, 360, 370 call spread. Took a target. This one held up okay. Here, again, I don't mind giving a little bit of trade ideas away, no problem. But this was also brought to me by a member today. Look at Yelp. So as I mentioned, I'm scaling out of Grub, putting on a little bit of Yelp. So it just turned the corner and got above the 5-period moving average today. So again, I'm not really that crazy about adding a lot of risk here, but something like this looks like a pretty good setup. I'm not going to ignore it. Anything else for option activity? I could go over a couple other names. The other strategy is, and I've talked about this a couple times now, we see these trades on the tape. Oh, Twilio was a beautiful trade today. A couple traders took this in the room today. Monster. this thing after earnings. So just took another leg higher today, up over 5%, right? In the wheelhouse of more business technology. There was a little bit more Twitter, and but there's a little bit of calls. KSU. Oh, let me talk about this for a minute. Again, like I said, tons of things to talk about. We saw some EWW. These are what I call NAFTA trades. There was some EWW calls that expire tomorrow, as well as next week that traded. Kind of lottos, I would call them. And also KSU, which has been very weak the last 2 days. Some call buying going into that as well. Again, I think something very sensitive going into NAFTA talks, which I think they're close. A few other trades. Somebody bought Dow DuPont right before the end of the day. Also GRA, Holly Frontier, a couple trades there as well. All right, guys, that's it. I like to keep these videos under 20 minutes, and I'm going a little bit over. So thanks very much for watching. Have a great night. And again, a lot of things to be excited about in this market. See you tomorrow.